Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin Bloom. It is FA Cup weekend. We're going to have a slight change of tack tonight. We haven't had many big transfers go through yet, so I'm going to just clear out the first week of the Championship transfer window, obviously opening up for the start of January. I'm sure there'll be some big stuff to come in terms of transfers. But it's taken its normal pattern here in the Championship where you get some organised teams already doing a little bit of business that probably was already pre-planned. A lot of loans, people going back and forth. One or two big deals so far, but we already knew they were going to happen. And the truth is, at this point, a lot of clubs that are going to end up doing business don't know that they're actually going to be doing business yet because they're going to be negotiating. So that knock-on transfer that brings the money in, that starts things rolling around, hasn't happened yet. But rest assured, it will. It always does. So quite a few moves, ins and out, lots of loan stuff. Remember, Thomas says Barnsley have already signed someone. Can't believe it. I can, Thomas. Remember, with the loans, you cannot play for three clubs in one season. So some deals you might think will go out for another loan, but they're not going to. What I would love to do at the end is just get your questions and your transfer rumours after we've gone through all the solid stuff that has happened already. So let's bash through these. Vita Manone has returned back to Reading. He'd been in Minnesota. They've got Raphael in goal there, so he doesn't have a future, and he will likely end up in Italy. Interesting one at Stoke. Josh Timmons been on loan in Portugal. He's come back. I'm always interested when a guy comes back on loan and a new manager who didn't loan him out has arrived. Michael O'Neill's there, so maybe some looking for Timmons. Hasn't happened so far at Stoke. Steve says Leeds interested in Luke Freeman from Sheffield United. We'll add these up and talk about them at the end. No, screw it. Let's talk about it now. Freeman, number 10, brilliant for QPR last season, can play off the left. Would be pretty perfect for Leeds to sit next to Klitsch in the central of midfield. Is he quick enough to play Bielsa ball? Certainly brilliant technician, and if he can get up to the pace of it, then would be a great sign, although I just cannot imagine Sheffield United would spend that money to loan him back straight away and help Leeds after they denied them last season. But we'll see. Pretty strong link, I think. Sean McLaughlin returns to Hull from St Mirren on loan. Another returnee is an interesting one. Emiliano Marcondes. He came, he started the season with Brentford. I think he played some games. Went on loan to Norway. Came back and actually scored the winner in the Cup against Stoke at the weekend. Obviously, the three clubs in one season thing kicks in. So Marcondes might have a chance of playing himself in. If I'm Brentford now, I want as much squad, as much quality as possible to get me through the rest of this season and keep me in that top 3 or 4. Cham says Marcondes went to Denmark. Sorry, I can't read flags, Cham, can I? I'm sure Cham is correct about that. Benham's other club. Interesting. Yeah. Jack Clark, we know about this one. I was at the Spygate game where Jack Clark, Jesus Christ, was he good? Leeds versus Derby, where he announced to the world that he could destroy a team all on his own. Absolutely brilliant performance. Andrew says Southampton confirmed Adams not moving to Leeds. I think Adams started for Southampton a few games ago, didn't he? Be strange for them to drop that money and then loan him back. So Clark, I think it was the right deal for Leeds at the time because the other big asset was obviously Phillips, and they didn't want anything to do with selling him. Clark is. Dean says Leeds going to have Tom Elliott. Excellent stuff, Dean. You wouldn't want to have shipped out Calvin Phillips, would you? So gamble on the really young winger. They got the loan back and just didn't use him. 19 minutes of Championship football. Bielsa knows what he wants. If he could only play 11 players all season, I'm sure he would, once he's figured out who they are. And Clark off back to Spurs. Obviously, he hasn't touched the ball for Spurs, so he could do another loan. Don't know whether we'll see him in the Championship again. On the potential of that Derby game, Andrew says Clark hasn't been right since he became ill last season versus Borough. Yeah, maybe true. Do you know what? I actually saw Clark score against Villa as well for Leeds. People say I'm the curse of Leeds, but maybe I'm Jack Clark's lucky charm because he was brilliant in that game when he came on as a sub as well. So we'll see if he ends up back in the Championship. Possibilities. Jaggy says, totally agree with animation. I'm terrified we buy Jack Harrison. Harrison's been playing well, guys. Come on. Max Sheaf back to Hull from Cheltenham. You'd think he'll probably go out again. Andre Green is an interesting one. He's been battered about the Championship. I think he was at Pompey previous season. Got some minutes for Villa, didn't he? Wide. Was at Preston this season. You'd think that would have been a good match. But no, didn't obviously click with Alex Neil. 4 sub appearances, but straight off to Charlton the next day after his recall. So Charlton definitely need bodies. If there's any Charlton in the chat here, tell me the loan count, because I'm sure they've got a fair few and they must be close to not being able to include them all in the matchday squad, Charlton. But we'll see. They definitely need bodies, like I say, with all the injuries they've got. The lesser spotted Wayne Rooney completed his transfer. That officially went through, obviously, December the 31st, January the 1st. He's already played 2 games and they've already won 2 games. A England great, a Manchester United great. Nice for the Championship. I think I remember Paul Gascoigne coming to play with Middlesbrough. Animation says Cenk Tosun for Charlton. That would be an Everton striker, am I right? Help me in the chat with that one. But great to see Rooney in there. We're just waiting for that first goal. I'm sure it is going to come. Here's an interesting one. Sam Surridge returns to Bournemouth and then signs a new contract. 7 goals for Swansea this season. Took me by surprise a little bit, to be honest, because when the season started, Baston, who was this really expensive guy, was in and he was scoring goals. But Surridge obviously played him out of the team, which is a fair nod of approval from Steve Cooper. They tried Ayew up front, but Cooper really liked Surridge, and Surridge is now this commodity that's kind of proven at Championship level as well. BFC Ben says Barnsley in for 2 more Wolfsberger players, a centre-back and a right-back. Interesting. All going on at Barnsley. But yeah, Surridge, that's an interesting one. I don't, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, I don't think he has kicked the ball for Bournemouth, so he could do another loan. Could just be tying up the contract. Whether they need him in the Premier League or not, I don't know how Bournemouth's injuries are for forwards, but certainly Surridge is now going to be one of those guys named that, I don't know, top 10 clubs will want to take in the Championship, I think, as a bit of a bolster to their striking options. Speaking of striking options, someone will probably be on this already because it is coming up 7 o'clock. If anyone can tell me whether Eddie Nketiah has been named for Arsenal, because that will obviously put pay to him going to Bristol City. Really interesting one, this one. I think Leeds paid a bit of a fee as well, a loan fee and good wages for Eddie Nketiah on loan from Arsenal. Kind of Ian Wright likenesses, goal scorer. Looked like it would be a really good fit, but remember how Bielsa ball works. You have one up front and he has to be able to link up and bring wide players and central midfielders in. And he loves Patrick Bamford, doesn't he? So Nketiah not getting that many games. Some people wondered whether you could do one of them in a number 10 position and the other one up front. Not too sure. 3 clubs in for Eddie, says Cham. Bristol, Wednesday and Forest. Interesting. I would have thought Bristol City would be at the front of the queue. I assume some sort of insurance policy will kick in for the wages they're paying for Benik Afobe. So they should probably have some money there to still pay wages. I would think that link will happen, unless someone tells me he's starting for Arsenal, in which case he can't play for 3 clubs in 2021 season. Animation says, why isn't Rodri playing? Added in there for Bristol City, Spaniard, earlier in the season. Speaking of Bristol City, Jamie Patterson has gone back there, and I believe he's played for both clubs this season. Kind of can play more suited to a 4-2-3-1, I think. Play right, left, 10. No Eddie in the Arsenal team, says Jaggy. They've put a strong team out. Interesting. So I would now heavily say Eddie ends up at Bristol City. Samuel says Woodrow to Leeds. Wasn't aware of that link. Jaggy says we've got Meslier starting, which I'm really interested to see. This is the young goalkeeper. Jaggy, if you can tell me more about Meslier, that'd be great. I'd be interested to know about that, because I know Kiko's had a really good season, but he's no spring chicken, is he? Jamie Patterson back to Bristol City there gives them some extra options. Connor says Woodrow to Millwall is a link as well. Lots of Barnsley stuff going on here. Woodrow having a good season. Sam says he's tall and a very low BMI. Excellent. Animation said Woodrow, please don't go to Leeds, because HITC Sport made a bet. Couple of others here. Luke Steele's gone back to Forest from Millwall on loan. I think that was when the whole Bart deal was collapsing and they needed somebody in there. Jaggy on Meslier says rated as one of the top young French goalkeepers. Looks good. John says Woodrow to Leeds. I've also heard Adams and Gale not moving. Dwight Gale, remember the Championship go-to guy. If you can afford the wages, he will score you a load of goals. We have a Leeds team here. Meslier, Berardi, Ayling, White, Douglas. Oh, Gotts, that's good. Klitsch, Phillips, Harrison. I didn't quite see the rest. George Thorne has gone back to Derby from Oxford. Only 16 minutes in League One. I don't know what you guys think in the chat, whether Thorne's now League One or still a Championship player. John says Newcastle won't loan him. Talking about Dwight Gale, 15 million price tag. I think the days are gone now for Championship clubs spending that. BFC Ben says Woodrow with Leeds not willing to pay the money. Jack Clark linked to Millwall and Preston, says Connor. Cham says the leg break destroyed Thorne's career. He's not actually that old, Thorne, isn't he? Dean says Jim Wallace to Villa. 15 million, take the money if you're Millwall. Sell, 15 million. Wow. That is would be a massive club record for Millwall, wouldn't it? Got to take that all day long, I think, however important the player is to you. For a club like Millwall, that money can make such a difference. John says Villa don't have 15 million. I believe they just lost a striker. Animation says Watkins to Palace. Interesting. You pay Brentford tax on that, wouldn't you? Villa want Bowen. That's their number one. I'm sure a great deal of clubs want Bowen, don't they? Donovan Daniels back to Luton from Doncaster. He had a good run in the team. So I know the goalkeeper who we're going to come on to, Seny Dieng, that's been extended for Doncaster from QPR. So maybe Luton will let him go out. Osman Kaikai back to QPR from Partick, 13 appearances in the Scottish Championship up there. One we knew about, but that's only just gone through, is Michael Hector. That one is expensive, just shy of 8 million. Already debuted in the FA Cup, already won a game. Remember, it's been Mawson and Ream all season. All the Sheffield Wednesday fans in the chat said how great Hector was for them last season. Seems to have had about 1 billion clubs on loans and various business. So, it'd be good to see him settle there at Fulham. Be interested to know whether people think does he replace Ream? Who knows? Andrew says, don't be surprised if Orta brings in players from overseas. Yeah, I suppose Kassir was in January last season, wasn't he? Jack Amer back to Preston from Lancaster on loan. Here's a good sign, I think, for Blackpool. Jordan Thornley, permanent from Sheffield Wednesday. He's 23. 35 appearance for the Owls. Remember when we did the prized assets video here, we did suggest Owls not with a great record of keeping youngsters through. John says Fletcher Wednesday to Baggies doesn't seem to go away. That'd be an interesting one, wouldn't it? Although I would have thought they're fairly well stocked with Robson Kanu, Austin and Zahor up there. Shandon Baptiste from Oxford, look out for him. Championship soon. I will be watching him on the 14th, unless he's been sold before then, when Oxford play Ipswich Animation. So I will look him up. Cham says he likes Brannigan for Oxford. A couple of players who may end up in the Championship So Jordan Fornelly out to Blackpool. Alex says we need to get the Bartman signed up and a central midfielder while Tomo is out. Animation, give us a tweet. I'll meet you before Oxford will say hello there. Kieran Dowell, who's a bit of I think, a good Championship player. I thought he was good for Forest. Saw him score a brilliant free kick at Ipswich for Forest. Did whatever Chris Wilder asked him, and frankly, really helped when Mark Duffy's legs were going at the end of last season for Sheffield United. I don't know what the deal was with him and Koku. Didn't work. He's gone straight back to Everton and then straight off to Wigan. So I think that's probably a better fit for him. I do worry about some of these Everton players. Like Ipswich have got Luke Garbutt and they've had Connolly and Pennington. They do seem to take a while to find their level. You see a lot of them go out and back and forth and back and forth. So I think Dowell needs a permanent club now, doesn't he? And I don't know whether Everton are probably going to get the big money that they want. Bright, Eno Bakare, he leaves Wigan, only played 48 minutes back. He goes to Wolves. Is that a League One loan now for Eno Bakare? We will see. Samuel says, I'm hearing Quest in sensational swoop for Bloom. I'll do anything for money, Samuel. So yes, I will keep that rumour going. Tanai Watson, not much used by Coventry. He goes back to Reading. Thibaut Verlinden played a lot of games for Bolton, back to Stoke. He could definitely go back there or somewhere else in League One. BFC Ben says, Marcus Maddison been linked with Huddersfield, and Peterborough will sell, don't you, though? Keep that moving. Alex says, any news coming out of the Tractor Boys, Ari Bart? I think they'll sell. And Millwall fans won't want to hear this, but Ipswich will want a bidding war with that just to try and drive the fee up a little bit. Although I think, knowing Bart, he's got all his family up in Rushmere in Ipswich. He'll be happy with Millwall. That's not a terrible commute. John says, Maddison's a 2.5 million release clause. God, I think there'd be a ton of Championship clubs in if that is the case. There, Lawrence de Burke back to Leeds, only played 5 games on loan at Sunderland. Here's an interesting one. This could be a really good one. Patrick Roberts. He went to Norwich very early in the summer. They did that straight away after getting promoted, pretty much. Man City guy. Only played 23 minutes in the Premier League. All I know is that Stuart Webber is normally a very, very good judge of a player, and took him to the Premier League. He's now at Borough, already debuted. I think that might be a good one, Roberts to Borough on loan. No one gambled. Borough offered 700k the other week. Peterborough owner slammed them on Twitter for it. Dara McAntney in slamming someone on Twitter shot, John. Hey, there you go. Steve Seddon, you'll be able to tell me about this one, John. Back to Birmingham. Didn't really play for Pompey. He's played more games in the Championship than he has in League One on that line. Samuel says, what is Jordan Rhodes doing these days? Collecting a very fat salary, and Mr. Chan Series tried to move him on 100 times. I think I would just play him now, for goodness sakes. Get him in there, especially if Fletcher's injured. But obviously it's January, so Jordan Rhodes will be linked somewhere. John says, gone to Pompey on loan, not back to... Oh, it's the other way around. Beg your pardon, John. Sorry about that. So Seddon out there. Ben says, Jordan Rhodes linked with Celtic and Wigan. Do you know, I'd like to see him go to Wigan and just bang in a load of goals. They've already got Kiefer Moore and Joe Garner, the excellent Ipswich ex-strikers. John says Seddon will be a good signing, needs games for Pompey. Pompey playing well. Here is an interesting one. If Cham is still in the chat, he'll help me with this one. Halil Dervisoglu. I believe this was done in the summer to Brentford. All our eyes prick up when Brentford bring in some 20-year-old European guy. 2.7 million. Played 81 minutes in the Cup. Regular in the Eredivisie. Looks like a typical Brentford deal where it's possibly for next season or the future. But hey, if you've got backup, I know the Brentford front three is brilliant. They've done it so many times, Brentford, especially with strikers. You look at Hogan and Mopai, they've made a fortune from strikers. Good. Cham says, Halil is a class player, best Dutch youth player outside of Ajax. Cham, is he Turkish or Dutch? He sounds very, very Turkish with Dervisoglu. But yeah, really looking forward to it. We all pay attention when Brentford do the European signings because they get them right, don't they? Be interested in your guys' thoughts on this one. Lucas Nemecha, he's another guy who kind of gets hyped, but I'm not 100% certain yet. Back to Devizoglu, Turkish under 21. Okay. Thanks, Chad. So yeah, Nemecha, obviously you have to be pretty good to be on Man City's books. He went to Preston last season. Now I know Alex Neil will play a striker with his back to goal, and then that guy brings in, it's Callum Robinson, wasn't it, and Alan Brown the whole time. But Nemecha didn't score hardly any goals, 24 starts, 3 goals. He's gone to Borough as well. I'm not so sure about that one, especially Fletcher seems to be doing okay. I think Assombalonga is still hurt, isn't he? But maybe it was a double deal with Roberts and Nemecha and they had to take both. I don't know, but I'm more high on Roberts, I think, than Nemecha, but I'm sure we'll have Preston fans comment on that one smartness up. It might be the modern game, 4-2-3-1, forward plays, back to goal, and we'll see. BFC Ben says, surprised Adam Eder hasn't been linked with Championship side. Looks to be on the way to Donny. Well, I'm sure a lot of Championship sides will have seen that hat-trick against Preston and might want to look at that. I forget the journalist's name, but a quite well-connected Donny journalist was tweeting that it's very likely done, Eder, but we'll see whether Norwich want to push him up any higher. As an Ipswich fan, I'd prefer him not at Doncaster because he's probably going to score a hatful, isn't he? And a Norwich lone player is guaranteed to score against Ipswich, of course. Herbie Kane from Liverpool to Hull on loan, straight in. Nice assist for Tom Eaves' second goal in the FA Cup tie against Rotherham. Remember, good link up before with Liverpool and Hull, Harry Wilson, Andy Robertson, I guess you could say the other direction. So, should be a good one. Obviously, Hull, things depend on the outgoings rather than the incomings, don't they? Reece Brown out to Peterborough from Huddersfield, hasn't touched the league team, so Cowley doesn't look too bothered about him. Tyreek Parkinson, Bristol City out to Plymouth. Devante Cole's back to Wigan from Motherwell, scored 4 goals in the Scottish Premiership. Let's not get into which is a higher standard, Scottish Premiership or Championship. Maybe could do it. John says, Reece Brown, what a waste of talent. Tell us more about that one. John, it'd be interesting to hear about Reece Brown. Where were we? We mentioned Seny Dieng already. That's been extended to Doncaster from QPR on loan. Josh Neville back from Solihull Moors to Luton. Here's a fun one, which will just make you all wince in these days of FFP. Badu Ndiaye from Stoke out to Trabzonspor on loan. He was in Turkey on loan last season. And Ndiaye once cost Stoke £14 million. They've taken 150 grand loan fee. Trabzon are going to pay $1 million in wages, and they can have him at the end of the season for $8 million. If I'm a Luton fan or a Barnsley fan or a Wigan fan, listening to one of my rivals shipping out a 14 million quid player, I'm thinking the world is not a very fair place. But hey, this is proximity to the Premier League, and parachute money is how it distorts that league. Ridiculous, probably the loss that Stoke are going to make on Ndiaye, but makes good business sense to get him off the books now, doesn't it? Louis Coyle, this is an interesting one. Back to Leeds from Fleetwood. That's John on Brown. Saw him come through. You Franks under Lee Clark, look quality, never seemed to grasp it. Interesting. Louis Coyle has been on loan at Fleetwood for ages. He's at Leeds, so if there's any Leeds in the chat, tell us about him. I assume he'd be a shoo-in for a League One transfer. Whether he can go higher, I don't know. Out of contract in the summer. Bielsa apparently would like to cash in. If he's, what Bielsa's like, he's not using someone, doesn't need them, does he? So we'll see whether Fleetwood can stump up the cash there in the face of Sunderland. Maybe not. Josh Earl back to Preston after 9 appearances at Bolton. Bridcut back to Forest after 11 at Bolton. We'll see if they can come back in for either of those guys. Sometimes we get these situations where the loan players get back. The owner club sees what they're going to do. And then they can go back out. Jaggy says, always rated Coyle, but surely he's got to get sold soon. It looks like now's the time. Jaggy, is he a League One player or could he get a Championship gig? And finally, the one the guys mentioned in the chat here, Barnsley, Marcel Ritzheimer on a permanent. It's undisclosed, so we don't know the fee here. If anyone knows any extra on that. First, Struber signing from Barnsley. It's from Austria, so we assume Struber has got something to do with it. And quite the big up. He says he can play in the 6, the 8 or the 10. gives lots of options in the diamond. As I say, interesting to see whether that's the committee. Samuel says on who are we talking about? Coyle. Bielsa doesn't loan players; he just gets rid. Jaggy, not sure, League One or Championship. But yeah, on Richheimer to Barnsley, whether or not he had anything to do with it or whether it's the committee, I'm going to spit in the air and assume that because he's Austrian. I could be completely wrong about that. That could be me putting 2 and 2 together and making 100 there. But Barnsley certainly stocking up on young, good age European players. The likelihood is they probably need one of them to really get moving and to do a bit of a sell-on. I saw Pinnock play for Brentford actually. That looked like a sort of good sell-on there. Right, that's the kind of first layer of transfers. We see the organised people, the ones you'd expect, Barnsley and Brentford going to Europe. Fulham are a parachute team, so they've taken Hector. That's the only real big ones. Obviously, the Rooney thing was already done. So the organised ones have gone out the way now. The loanees that have gone bang bang to one place and then to the other, you will see another load of loanees. I don't know whether they'll do an extended loan window after January. I don't quite remember the rules, whether you can take people the following week. But you would expect in the next couple of weeks for the ball to get rolling on big transfers. Lots of great rumours here. You'd assume if you're in the Championship, there's plenty of games. You want these bodies in sooner rather than later, but you know how these owners are with the haggling. Really enjoyed all the rumours and the shouts. So what I will do is I'll leave it another week. We'll see what goes through and give another update then. And as always, if a big transfer happens, I'll do a video just on that player, assuming I know enough or I can get the research done. Apologies to Brentford and Barnsley fans of trying to find out about these lesser known Turkish and Austrian players. Right, any ideas for other transfer content, please do let me know. Follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. Hit subscribe, ring the bell for more transfer updates as they come through. You can support monetarily, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. As usual, I say it every time, not blowing smoke. Thank you, everybody who joins in and gives me these tidbits of information. Absolutely brilliant. And not just from me, I think if I was a subscriber, I would like to think a really good place to pull information and listen to other Championship fans. Hopefully, we're a bit more discerning here than the kind of Arsenal fan TV, yell, it's a joke, you're a fraud, etc., shouting in traffic type thing. Right. I assume everyone's now off to watch the Leeds Arsenal game. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all soon. Over and out.